I shouldn't have gone to the party, I know that now. But when your entire social circle is intertwined like a ball of hopelessly tangled yarn, what are you supposed to do? Disappear. Become a hermit because you had the audacity to say no when a man gets down on one knee in your shared living room. I tried to be the bigger person, the cool ex-girlfriend who doesn't make things weird. A total failure, by the way. The whole night felt like I was walking on broken glass. Every conversation was a minefield. People would look from me to Ellis and back again, their smiles a little too tight, their questions about my week a little too loud. And Ellis, God, Ellis was the worst part. He was gliding through the party, a picture of calm, accepting condolences from our friends as if I'd died, not just ended our engagement. Then he saw me. He came over, weaving through the dancing bodies, and the small circle of people I was talking to just evaporated. It was just us, standing in a bubble of suffocating silence amidst the thumping bass. He was holding 2 glasses of red wine. "Nina," he said, and his voice was so unnervingly gentle it made the hairs on my arms stand up. He held one of the glasses out to me. "We don't have to be like this, for old time's sake." I just stared at the glass, deep dark red. I didn't want it. I didn't want anything from him. But I could feel the eyes of everyone on us. I could feel the weight of their judgment. "Just take the drink, Nina. Don't make a scene." My hand was halfway there when a blur of motion and laughter crashed into us. It was Tarek, my best friend, his face flushed from dancing. "Hey," he boomed, snatching the glass from Ellis's hand with a grin. "No, you don't. Don't you dare try to get my dance partner drunk before I get my chance." He winked at me, a big, goofy, life-saving wink, and then he tipped the glass back and took a huge gulp. It happened so fast. One second he was laughing, the wine still on his lips. The next, the smile froze on his face. His eyes went wide with a kind of confusion that turned instantly to terror. The glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor. Then his whole body went rigid, a horrible guttural sound tearing from his throat as he collapsed, his limbs jerking violently on the floor. The music screeched to a halt, the laughter died, and all that was left was the sound of Tarek choking, and then finally the screaming began. The next few hours are a smear of flashing lights and the piercing wail of a siren that seemed to be coming from inside my own skull. I remember fragments, a paramedic's hand on my shoulder, the cold, sterile smell of the emergency room hitting me like a physical blow, the squeak of shoes on linoleum. But mostly I remember the waiting. We were in a small, windowless room, the kind they put you in when the news is probably bad. The light was a sickly fluorescent yellow, humming a low, anxious tune. Tarek's parents were there, his mother silently weeping into a handful of tissues, his father pacing a tight little circle. And Ellis was an island of unnerving tranquility in our sea of panic. While I was vibrating with a terror so profound I couldn't form a coherent thought, Ellis was handling things. He spoke to the nurses in a low, steady voice. He got Tarek's mom a cup of water. He even walked over to me and draped his jacket over my shoulders, his fingers brushing my arm for a fraction of a second. The touch felt like an electric shock. "He's going to be okay, Nina," he murmured, his expression a perfect mask of concern. "Tarek's a fighter." I flinched away from him. I couldn't help it, because all I could see was Tarek's face, that beautiful, laughing face, contorting in agony. And a single, monstrous thought began to bloom in the wasteland of my mind, a toxic weed pushing through concrete. That wine was for me. A doctor came in, his face etched with professional sympathy. He asked questions. Did Tarek have any known allergies? Was he on any medication? Had he eaten anything unusual? We all just shook our heads, helpless. Tarek's mother looked at me, her eyes red and pleading, as if I, his best friend, should have the answers. And the guilt was a physical weight in my chest, a stone sinking me into my chair. I couldn't breathe. I should have the answers. I should have been the one to drink it. The thought kept circling back, relentless and cruel. That was my glass, my drink, my punishment. Punishment for what? For saying no, for wanting to be free. The idea was so insane, so monstrous, that my mind tried to reject it. This was Ellis, the man I had loved for 5 years, the man who cried during sad movies and rescued spiders from the bathtub. But then I'd look at him. He was standing by the door, perfectly still, watching the doctor leave. There was no panic in his posture, no frantic worry in his eyes. There was just control. A quiet, terrifying composure, and I realized that his calmness wasn't a source of comfort. It was the most frightening thing in the room. It was the calm of someone who wasn't surprised. And as he turned his head and his eyes met mine from across the room, I felt a cold that had nothing to do with the hospital's air conditioning. It was the cold of absolute certainty. He knew. He knew what was in that glass. Update 1. Hey, I don't even know why I'm posting this. I guess I just need to scream into the void. My hands are still shaking so badly I can barely type. First, the good news, Tarek is out of the woods, he's stable. They moved him from the ICU to a regular room this morning. I just saw him, he's weak and he looks hollowed out. But he's alive, thank God he's alive. The guilt is still eating me alive though. Every time I look at him hooked up to all those machines, I just see him snatching that glass to save me from a moment of social awkwardness. He was just being Tarek, he was being my friend. The doctors are calling it a severe atypical anaphylactic shock, a 1 in a million reaction. The preliminary toxicology screens came back clean for all the usual suspects. No barbiturates, no opiates, nothing they routinely test for. The official theory, the one everyone is clinging to because it's the only one that makes sense, is that it was the wine. It was some fancy small batch import that the host, Anya, had bought. The doctors are speculating that maybe it had some rare, unlisted preservative or a specific type of sulfite that Tarek had a catastrophic reaction to. An accident. A horrible, tragic freak accident, that's what everyone is telling me. My friends have been calling, texting. It's not your fault, Nina. It could have been anyone. Thank God you didn't drink it. You have allergies too. It could have been you. They mean well. But their words feel like sandpaper on my raw nerves, because there's this one detail I can't shake. I can't get it out of my head. It's Ellis. The way he looked at me when he offered me that glass. It wasn't the look of a man offering a peace treaty. It was blank, empty like a doll's eyes. There was no anger, no sadness, just nothing, a void. Am I going crazy? Am I so twisted up by the breakup and the guilt that I'm turning a tragedy into a conspiracy? It sounds insane when I think about it. Ellis, a poisoner. The man who organized my surprise 25th birthday party and spent a month learning my favorite song on the guitar. It doesn't fit, it doesn't make sense. But the feeling, this cold, slithering certainty in my gut, it won't go away. I feel like I'm losing my mind, caught between what everyone believes and what I saw. The idea that it was just an accident felt like a lie my brain was desperately trying to sell my gut, and my gut wasn't buying it. For days, I was useless. I'd just sit in my apartment, staring at the wall, the image of Tarek collapsing playing on a loop. Then the grief and fear started to curdle into something else. A cold, sharp-edged anger. I couldn't let it go. I owed it to Tarek to not let it go. I started thinking about Ellis, not the Ellis I had loved, but the Ellis I had lived with. The details, the hobbies, the things I'd always dismissed as quirky, and then it hit me, his books. Ellis was a cultural anthropology grad, but his real passion was ethnobotany. He had this whole bookshelf dedicated to it, dense, academic tomes on the ritualistic and medicinal uses of plants from around the world. I'd always teased him about it, calling him a witch doctor in training. He'd just smile. That was my key. I texted him. My fingers felt like ice. Hey, I know this is awful timing, but I need to get the last of my things from the apartment. Can I come by tomorrow when you're at work? I'll be quick. He replied almost instantly. Of course, the key is still under the mat. Take all the time you need. So agreeable, so reasonable. It made my skin crawl. The next day, I let myself into our old apartment. It felt alien, haunted by the ghost of our life together. The air was stale. I went through the motions, packing a box with a few old sweaters and books I'd left behind, my heart hammering against my ribs. My real destination was his study. The bookshelf stood there just as I remembered. I scanned the titles, my breath catching in my throat. Psychoactive Flora of the Amazon Basin, The Serpent and the Rainbow. Poisons, Potions, and Pharmacons. My hands trembled as I pulled them out one by one, flipping through the pages, looking for anything, a bookmark, a dog-eared page, a note, nothing. I was about to give up, the wave of self-doubt washing over me again. I was being paranoid. I was a monster for even thinking this. Then I saw it. It wasn't on the main shelf. It was on his desk, partially hidden under a stack of mail. A heavy leather-bound book lying open, a field guide to neotropical hallucinogens and toxins. My blood ran cold. The page was bookmarked with a faded receipt. And on that page, a detailed botanical illustration of a delicate trumpet-shaped white flower. The entry was for Brugmansia suivolens. Common name, angel's trumpet, but it was the local name, the one he'd circled in faint pencil that made me gasp for air. Aliento del Diablo, the devil's breath. I didn't need to read the full description. I saw the key phrases jumping off the page like they were written in blood. Odorless, tasteless, induces a state of compliant delirium followed by severe convulsions. Extremely difficult to detect in standard toxicology, and there, scribbled in the margin in Ellis's neat, precise handwriting, was a small, chilling note. Effective dosage, micrograms, rapid onset. This was it. This was the moment the world tilted on its axis, and everything I thought I knew fell away. It wasn't a freak accident. It wasn't a 1 in a million allergy. It was this flower, this poison. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers slipping on the screen, and took a photo of the page of his handwriting. I didn't even bother packing the rest of my things. I walked out of that apartment, leaving the box of sweaters on the floor, and drove straight to his office. He was in a meeting when I got there. I told the receptionist it was an emergency. He came out, his face a mask of concern. "Nina, what's wrong? Is it Tarek?" I didn't say a word. I just held up my phone, showing him the picture. For a split second, I saw something flicker in his eyes, a flash of pure cold fury. It was there and then it was gone, replaced by a look of profound, heartbreaking hurt. "Nina, what is this?" he asked, his voice soft with disbelief. "Don't," I whispered, my voice shaking, "don't you dare." He looked at the phone, then at me, and he actually laughed. A sad, tired laugh. "Oh, Nina, is this what we're doing now? Because you feel guilty about turning me down, you have to turn me into a villain. You go into my home, rifle through my private things, and invent this insane story to make yourself feel better. To make me a monster so you don't have to be the one who broke my heart." He shook his head, looking at me with what I can only describe as pity. "I knew you were hurting, but I never thought you'd be this cruel." Update 2, so I did it. I went to the police. I sat in a cold, sterile interrogation room for 3 hours, feeling like the criminal. I showed them the photo on my phone. I told them everything: the proposal, the party, the look in Ellis's eyes, the book. The lead detective, a man named Walsh with tired eyes and a coffee-stained tie, listened patiently. He nodded, he took notes, and then he explained in the most patronizingly gentle voice why my evidence was essentially useless. A picture of a book, it's circumstantial. Ellis is a student of ethnobotany. Owning a book like that is his hobby, not proof of intent. The note in the margin could have been written years ago for a research paper. As for the wine, the glass was shattered and cleaned up in the chaos of the party. The dregs were contaminated, they couldn't test it. And since Tarek's official diagnosis was anaphylaxis and not poisoning, there was no basis to open a criminal investigation. No body, no weapon, no crime, just my hysterical, as they all but said, accusation. I left the station feeling more alone than I have ever felt in my life. And that was just the beginning. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Ellis must have known I'd go to the police. He'd already started his campaign. He told our friends that I was having a breakdown, that the guilt and stress were making me paranoid. He was the victim. I was the vindictive ex, unable to cope with the consequences of my own actions, trying to destroy his life. And they believed him. My phone, which had been buzzing with messages of support, went silent. Or worse, it buzzed with messages of a different kind. Anya, the party's host, called me, furious that I was turning her friendly get-together into a crime scene and implicating her in serving poisoned wine. Other friends, people I'd known for years, texted me things like, "I think you need to get help, Nina, or Ellis is a good guy. You're going too far." The circle of my life snapped. I was on the outside, looking in at the life I used to have, and all I saw were the backs of people I once called my friends. They chose him. The worst part is Tarek. He came home from the hospital last week. I went to see him, my heart in my throat. He's recovering, but he's not the same. There's a tremor in his hands he can't control and a new haunted look in his eyes. He knows, I know he knows. I can see it when he looks at me. He knows that drink was meant for me. But what can we do? What can we say? Our friendship, once so easy and full of laughter, is now suffocated by this horrible, unspoken truth. It's heavy with the weight of his stolen health and my suffocating guilt. We sit in his living room, making small talk, but the real conversation is in the silence between our words. It's in the way he never mentions Ellis's name, and the way I can't stop myself from saying I'm sorry over and over again. He paid the price for my no, and that is a debt I can never, ever repay. This is the cost. It's not just a broken engagement. It's a broken life, a broken friendship, and my own sanity hanging by a single fraying thread. Life settled into a new, terrifying normal. The silence from my old friends became a permanent fixture. I saw them sometimes in the grocery store or across the street, quick averted eyes, a sudden interest in their phones. I was a ghost in my own town. Ellis, on the other hand, seemed to be thriving. I saw a picture of him on social media, surrounded by our friends at a barbecue, smiling. He looked happy. Free, I tried to move on. I focused on work. I adopted a cat, a small, quiet creature named Gus, whose silent companionship was the only kind I could tolerate. But the fear was a low-grade fever that never broke. I double-checked my locks at night. I stopped drinking anything I hadn't opened myself. The world, which had once felt knowable and safe, now seemed full of hidden traps and smiling monsters. Then, about 3 months after the party, the package arrived. It was a small, brown cardboard box left on my doorstep. No return address, no name. Just my address, printed in neat block letters by a label maker. My first thought was that it was a bomb. The absurdity of the thought didn't make the fear any less real. I stared at it for a full 10 minutes before I nudged it inside with my foot. With Gus watching me from a safe distance, I carefully sliced it open with a kitchen knife. Inside, nestled in a bed of white tissue paper, was a small, clear glass vial, the kind used for scientific samples. It was sealed with a black rubber stopper and a crimped metal cap. And inside the vial was a single, dried, perfectly preserved flower. It was a delicate trumpet-shaped thing, its desiccated petals a pale, ghostly white. I didn't need a book to identify it. I knew exactly what it was. The devil's breath, angel's trumpet. I sank to the floor, the box in my lap, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. There was no note, no threat. There didn't need to be. This was his message. It was a confirmation, a confession, and a victory lap all in one. It was Ellis saying, "You were right. And you can't do a damn thing about it." He'd given me the one thing the police said I needed, the weapon, but he'd given it to me in a way that was completely useless. A dried flower in a vial sent anonymously through the mail, it proved nothing. It was just a dead plant, a botanical sample, a cruel, untraceable taunt he had won. He had gotten away with it completely. He not only escaped justice, but he had also successfully destroyed my social life, my friendships, and my peace of mind. And now he had sent me this trophy, this permanent, physical reminder of what he did, what he had intended to do to me. I'm holding the vial now, turning it over and over in my hand. The little flower inside is so fragile, so innocuous. It's the quietest, most violent thing I have ever seen. He didn't just want to hurt me, he wanted me to know. He wanted me to live with this forever. A silent, screaming truth that only the two of us would ever really understand. And as I sit here in my quiet apartment, I know he was successful. The party is over, but for me, it will never, ever end.